Invincible really thought it was cooking here, when actually the only thing cooked is this couple. Alright, my thoughts on this episode are complicated, and by that I mean I liked everything except Mark and Amber's relationship. As yes, the story has finally shown its hand that after a season of making Amber just a love interest, it turns out this was really all building to one giant speech about how Amber isn't just the love interest. They really thought they were saying something here, and it just kinda rubbed me the wrong way, even though I kinda like what they're saying. This show, though, it has just been fumbling Amber this entire series, with my only real consolation prize being here, that they finally broke these two up. That and Mark's other girl drama actually hit. So let's talk about what I liked about this episode before I get into the Amber situation, as we positivity before the critique. All right, ready, set, and skip to here if you just want just the Amber bits.
But sometimes the artists get carried away and it kind of looks like a different show. It's crazy what you can get away with.
So to give credit where credit is due, this episode overall is still very good. Even though I don't really care for anything Mark and Amber are doing, seeing ComicCon in this world is a blast. Seeing all the cosplayers, seeing just the weird shit that they get up to, and that one great joke about, hey, you know how to cut corners in animation? Well yeah, we're gonna show you all the little tricks. I believe this is in reference to the one time they did this in the comics, which I didn't know this was from Invincible till I looked it up. And yes, I did think this whole joke just went on just a wee bit too long, but I'll take this over what we were dealing with any day of the week, as at least here, I feel something. Thankfully, after a lesson in how to do less, we skip over to Mark skipping out on Amber to help a much, much more interesting Rex, who is just, he is going through it.
Don't do this, come on, don't do this to me.
Oh, that's that good shit!
And I said once, and I'll say it again, Rex is now one of my favorite characters, as he went from an asshole to an asshole that I actually like. We get to witness him post walking off a bullet to the head and desperately trying to get back in the game. This man is struggling to fight some calamari, only for Mark to swoop in to lend a hand, only for Rex to realize that he probably should have been using his.
Next time, open with that.
Now, what we see here with Rex, while funny, while cool, it's great to see him like being just a little bit empathetic to others. It's also a great microcosm of just this entire episode and hell, this entire season. As a recurring theme here, it's just been dealing with the aftermath of superheroics and the people who get hurt along the way. Rex is recovering from a mission that left him a little bit, as you would say, head empty. Debbie is rebuilding her life after Nolan, and maybe even dating this new guy who, shot in the dark, is gonna die horribly. Mark is trying to deal with his father's mess and trying to be better than him by sparing Amber the same backlash and failing at it. Everyone, Rick, Donald, hell, even the main villain of the season, Angstrom, is a leftover from Mark fighting the Maulers, who was then corrupted by the anger of 1,000 other versions of himself, who were implied to themselves be victims of alternate Marks. Everyone here has gone through something, with this season being all about people trying to recover or realize that this just may not be the wave they want to keep riding. From reactions big and small, everyone is going through it, and almost all of it is interesting. Like at the start of the season, you never could have convinced me that I would care about Rex talking about wanting to stay in the game versus retiring and opening up a bar. And saying this to Mark of all people. Dude was comedic relief, and now I'm just relieved to see he's doing okay. I don't know if this is the right decision for him, as Diet Gambit was struggling with another C-tier villain, but it's noble to watch him try and fight his fear to be a hero. Rex, he's good, and his offer to help Mark is even better, though he does set up Bulletproof to say what we've all been thinking.
Despite everything we've been through, we're still the best superhero team on the fucking planet.
12 seconds later.
Okay, let's do the lineup.
Yeah, the Guardians kinda suck. They're doing their best. Samson is right. They'll fight even when the chips are down. They're family. But no amount of positive thinking is really gonna change the fact that this team couldn't survive Nolan sneezing, let alone a Viltrumite who's actually pretending to try. I love these guys, but Bulletproof pointing out just what a shit show this team is sent me. As yeah, they're more Guardians of the Galaxy than Justice League. They're not the best of the best, they're the best of who they have left. And those numbers just keep dwindling. As the Immortal realizes he's one inconvenience away from a mental breakdown, so he's being forced to take a mandatory vacation. Meanwhile, Robot is trying to help Monster Girl.
Let me fix you.
I'm cursed, not broken. And I didn't ask for your help.
Like, him saying shit like this is why I think he's gonna turn out to be evil some point later down the road. Well, that and everything about how he got this body.
Best idea he could come up with was to make himself a new body with DNA he stole from a coworker.
Robot is on team good guy, but when every issue is something that needs to be fixed, and he's offering semi-reasonable brain surgery, the only real line between villain and hero here is just how necessary he thinks it is. That if Monster Girl will call him back. Though again, the fact that she is willing to entertain being in the same room as him after everything he did, like, it's just a lot to put on a person. Ethics are optional here, and results are mostly what matter. Speaking of which...
No, Donald, you cannot resign. Jesus, is there something in the water today?
Oh my god! They killed Kenny! You bastards!
So yeah, Donald is just Kenny from South Park. Yeah, he keeps dying and the government scoops up what's left of him and puts him back in the field. Turns out his memory loss of said events wasn't Cecil being Cecil, but Donald in a near previous life decided he didn't want to process all of this trauma, so he consented to having his mind wiped. Again and again, as this is a lot. Though it does have an interesting conversation about what you should live through and deal with versus what you're just better off without. As while I love Donald's speech about how a percentage doesn't determine how real they are, it's their actions and impact on the world that really matters. A part of me also thinks that since they have the technology, in Rick's case, like, yeah, maybe they should just erase his memories. Tell him that he's a robot, sure, and he had a horrible accident, but watching him relive the memories of what happened to him, how he stood on that ledge, yeah, I can see a case for why it might actually be better to let this college student sleep well at night. This whole sequence is great and probably my favorite of the episode, as you really feel bad for Rick and all he's been through, the sense of hopelessness he feels and how Donald and William are just want to help him get through it so much. And while not every story gets a perfect ending, the fact that they are still trying is what counts, and I like that. But after that, all we really have left is to talk about Mark's girl troubles. So let's start with the less problematic case. Also, for the record, I know who Anissa is and what she does in the comics, as that's the one spoiler that's found its way into every single video I've ever done about this show. But barring something that may or may not happen, I really enjoy Anissa's presence in this episode. From her first appearance during Mark's date and threatening Amber's life, the way all the good vibe just gets sucked out of the room when she appears was an experience that I won't soon forget. As yeah, she's a Viltrumite. We've seen what Nolan can do, and he was just trying to discipline his son. So Anissa's presence, the possibility of what she could do and how there's essentially nobody on Earth that can stop her, yeah, you can feel the tension, with everyone here doing everything that they can to avoid that. The stress is real, and after last season, a Viltrumite rampage would be one hell of a way to bookend this season. But Mark gets semi-lucky in this regard. As really, Anissa is here to tell Mark that Viltrumite ethics, unlike Earth's, are not optional. Demanding that he start subjugating the Earth immediately and showing him why that would be in his and everyone else's best interest if they would like to keep breathing, as it would just bring security and peace to their empire. Anissa is doing the calculus on hero work versus real change, which is always just a fun thing I love to see villains do, as yeah, people are having a horrible time all the time, with Mark only being able to help some of them some of the time. But even after dealing with the kaiju, Mark lives up to his name in spirit, if not body, refusing to become like them, with him getting his shit rocked in response, where he proves he's a better man than me, as I would have started lying my ass off almost immediately here. Mark though takes that beating, sticks to his guns, and calls her bluff that Viltrum would actually kill him, and weighs his options just well enough to guess that they still technically need him alive-ish. The fact that Anissa lets him lose consciousness shows just how thin that line was between him being here and him not. But he did it. He called her bluff, and now he is absolutely fucked, as unless he can get strong enough to beat whoever they send next, the Earth is in for a world of hurt. As yeah, if Anissa is the diplomatic Viltrumite, I can't imagine who they'd actually send to conquer the Earth. Though that's a tomorrow problem, as Mark's bones aren't the only thing that's getting broken tonight.
I don't know.
Maybe that's an answer.
Okay, fuck, let's just get this over with. I have complicated thoughts on how Invincible handled this breakup and just Amber this entire series. On one hand, I appreciate how they try and make us empathize with her situation. If I can give this season credit for anything, is that it shows just really how much this situation sucks. Dating a superhero sucks, and there is just so much more extra emotional baggage that comes along with it than most people would think. If you're a civilian and the other person is a superhero, yeah, that hero is gonna hero. They're gonna need to go save lives. So every time they dip, show up late, or just flat out disappear, it's typically for the greater good, to be doing good things. But that doesn't really cover the fact that being left hanging, like, it's still gonna leave you just a little bit salty. They have a right to be mad, to feel left out, or just frustrated just how this situation is just screwing them over personally. But knowing what the hero is doing then makes Amber feel like shit for feeling that way, when really it's a natural response. As yeah, Mark in practice always has to prioritize everything over her, which is just a shitty relationship regardless of good intentions. We've seen tons of relationships like this in comics or other superhero shows, with many of them making the normal partner seem annoying or bitchy for getting mad at the hero for doing their thing. Cue Incredibles.
Where is my super suit?
In a story where the hero is the true focus, it is way too easy for the love interest to be put in a position where they'll just never be the priority of the story. They'll always be an accessory. They'll have little to do and say that doesn't get repetitive really quick. They'll have writers who would prefer that the partner would be somebody else. Spider-Man comics, I'm looking at you. And all this combines to make a situation where very little empathy is being given to the people who have to wait on the sidelines and the frustration that comes along with it. Not everyone is built for this, and nobody deserves it. I'm glad we get some acknowledgement of that via Amber and Debbie. That said, how the show handles Amber, just, it annoys the shit out of me.
Just come back safe, okay?
Always.
So here's my beef with the show and how it just handles Amber. First off, we have just my general apathy towards her and Mark still being together. Season 1 broke them up. It happened. Then Mark nearly died and they just got back together, which you could argue makes sense. But my counter to that is that I still don't really care. We all know the writing on the wall of who Mark is gonna end up with. So them pulling the same delay tactic again, then never bothering to get me reinvested in that relationship, it feels like a mistake, as I have no reason to care about anything that they do, as I already know what's coming. But the only reason that the season gives me to care about them is the fact that they are just vaguely cute together. That's it. That's the only thing in season 2 that this ship has going for it. So when the story starts putting them through the ringer and Mark's secret identity gets in the way of everything, my first and only instinct is to say break up, as I already know that this isn't going to work out. I can see the point that they're building towards, but in practice, I have no reason to give a shit about them, the outcome, and all they have left is a message that I just like. Compounding me not caring is the fact that I also think that Amber's personality took a massive hit in this season, with her being written to just be Mark's supportive girlfriend versus the assertive and caller of his bullshit she was in season 1, which has me a little bit torn, as having seen what they're going for, how dating Mark strips her of her agency, his life controls and hijacks hers, I can see why they would emphasize that experience over all others. However, even knowing what they're going for, something about how they handled it still annoys me, though this could very easily just be personal opinion, so keep that in mind.
But my life matters too. Maybe it's small, maybe it's not earth-shattering, but it matters.
Does it though?
Like, here's my thing. I think all this comes to a point of just narrative calculus, where what makes something hit really just is gonna depend on the person. But for me, I think the idea of Amber losing her agency by being with Mark, getting absorbed and left behind by all of his crazy, is a decent idea. Yeah, I think this final monologue feels a little bit off on account of just how little we see of Amber in season 2. Every time we see her, she is just being Mark's girlfriend. Even when they're apart, she's worrying about him. I think on one hand, this shows the intended effect of what it's going for. But on the other, I think it creates a situation where the show wants to say something about Amber being forced to be just the girlfriend, while also framing and treating her as just the girlfriend, not the full person they try and claim her to be. We don't see her have a life outside of Mark, where yes, I know they're trying to recontextualize a very specific trope, but they're also just doing the trope. So now it feels a little bit conceited for Invincible to go, look, we did this thing, but we have something to say about it, even though what they have to say isn't, like, fully tracking. It's this weird place where I like how the show is trying to recontextualize this phenomena we see so much in comics, but also feels like they're not doing enough to fully win me over. That it wasn't worth having Amber's presence and personality take this much of an L just for one monologue. I would like to see the supposed life Amber was living. That way we can have the contrast between her thriving on her own versus when she's with Mark and everything becomes about him, feeding into the idea of just how much she's losing because she's dating a superhero. That I would have loved to see, because when she says,
But my life matters too.
my honest reaction was, is it? As while this story is being a little bit more empathetic than your average version, still feels like it only values Amber as a character based on what she brings to Mark's story. Rendering this breakup, which is good in isolation, I have no general problems with it, if you were to just take the scene by itself. But Amber's overall framing within the story makes it feel just a bit hypocritical that this is a speech they're trying to make, as she's trying to do it after they give her so little. Making my ick just a little bit worse is the fact that, and buckle up for this one, Amber's personality and presentation changes based on just whatever trope Invincible is trying to subvert. In season 1, a lot of effort was made to make Amber more than just the love interest. She was here to just keep Mark and Eve from fucking immediately, but the show wanted to make us feel like she was more than that. They wrote her to be assertive, to be the one pursuing this relationship, dealing with Mark's bullies on her own. She was made to be smart, funny, calling him out on his lies, as she wasn't an idiot. She was not a cardboard cutout. She could connect the dots between his excuses and spot the lies that he was telling. How he was late to meet her, yet he somehow brought sweets from across town. There was an effort here to make her feel like she had her own life, that she was her own character, with the ability to look how Mark was acting and to realize that, yeah, this dude's probably a superhero, which how they handle that is its own can of worms. But the point here is that everything they did with Amber in season 1 was to make her feel like her own person, to show Mark struggled to date while keeping his identity secret. Yet, the second season 2 starts, all that personality, all those glimpses of her life outside of Mark, they just stop. She just knows now, so naturally, not being a terrible person, she's just being so understanding, accommodating, and supportive of Mark's life. As now, the point of Amber has changed, so she did as well. The point of the season has been all about the ripples of superhero life and the aftermath / toll it takes on everyone else around it. Of how Amber, now being in the know, can't say shit as her life is now tied to Mark's, so by constantly leaving her to hold the bag. The show went from making her more than just a love interest to making her be just a love interest because now they had a point to make. It hits this weird place to me where I see what the show is trying to build to, yet I also feel like they're playing into it too heavily and making too many mistakes along the way. There's a lack of interest to getting the audience to get reinvested in this couple. It feels like they just, okay, they're together now, so we can just do the breakup thing that they already had planned. All this combined just had me slowly turning my head to the man behind the curtain and wondering just what he's doing back there. That despite saying Amber is her own person, that she has her own agency, looking at the show as a whole, I feel like it all points to the contrary. That she, more than any other character here, is the pawn of the plot, as she does and acts as it wills, which is something that's true for every fictional character, but it should never feel this obvious. I think there's a version of the story where Amber is just a love interest for the entire time she's on screen, that she exists solely to date Mark. We never get much about her other than that, but then she hits us with this speech where she says she has her own life. I feel like giving her less would weirdly make this whole scene more meaningful, as it would serve as a reminder to the audience that even the most flat characters do have their own inner thoughts and feelings. But this half and half approach of Amber being written to defy one trope versus another, I think it ends up getting the worst of both worlds, and hurts especially because we know that this story can do better. But it wants to have this big moment, so it just slapped the two back together and just said, deal with it. I don't think the writing here is bad, but I do find myself being annoyed that this is how they're trying to end it, where it feels like they've done Amber in this relationship every disservice imaginable. So even if I'm sympathetic to the situation, I just didn't care watching. RIP, no disrespect, if you love this breakup or ship, good for you. Just how it handled rubbed me the wrong way, and I just cannot get over that. But overall, still a good episode, and with the finale about to come out, yeah, we're in for some real insanity next week. Like, I don't know if this is gonna be Think Mark Think levels of bad, but if I had to guess, I think this is gonna be pretty close, with major death flags for everyone that isn't named Mark. Though based on the trailer, he might not be the Mark we should be worried about. Okay, this has been Sarcastic Course. Tell me what you all thought of this most recent episode of Invincible. What are your predictions for how this shit show is gonna end? And how fucked up is it gonna get? Give me all the takes, the good and the Amber related, but don't forget the most important part of all. Like, share, and subscribe. Love you all. Peace out.